from the beginning of time, through the many ages, wisdom, knowledge, and practices of all things energetic, mystical, and magical have enlightened us. Handed down from cultures, peoples, and civilizations across the whole of Earth. Passed on for all to learn, master, and share for the good of all humankind. Join Maddie now, as together we unwrap and share these gifts of the ages.
Welcome back, and glad to have you here again, joining me. So go ahead, grab a cup or a glass of your favorite beverage, get comfy in your bath, bed, or your favorite lounging spot, or go ahead and start with that run or workout that you want to do. I'm just glad you're here and that you get to do you. So while we unwrap some gifts together, it's important for you to be comfortable and enjoy your time that you're giving here. So last episode, we touched on what is energy and some idea of what the energetic topics might include. Alternative energy modalities, touching on quantum physics, and looking more deeply into how energy plays a vital role in wellness. This episode, we're going to begin to unwrap some of the mystical gifts. What do I mean and consider mystical? Well, it's really kind of subjective for me. For me, mystical is wide open. So much of what we'll unwrap and talk about crosses over between the three areas, the energetic, mystical, and magical. It's really kind of hard to pigeonhole or classify a lot of what we're looking into just one slot. They all correlate with each other in crossover. So you're going to hear me saying that a lot, that this isn't just energetic or just mystical or just magical. Mystical for me includes topics like meditation, divination, thought and manifestation. I guess the way that I kind of define mystical is gifts that, even though they're energy-based, which all things are energy-based as we went over last time, these topics are a little harder to explain scientifically or empirically just how they work. There's a sense of mystery or mysticism about them. Hence, mystical. Sometimes you might hear the terms mystical, metaphysical, or esoteric used to describe the same thing. People use those three terms about meditation. Let's take a quick look at each of these terms so that we can see that although they're slightly different, they're very similar. And we're going to start with mysticism. The dictionary defines mysticism as a belief that union with or absorption into the deity or the absolute, or the spiritual apprehension of knowledge inaccessible to the intellect, may be attained through contemplation and self-surrender. I'm going to go over it again and say it so that it can sink in a little bit and you can kind of try to grasp what it's saying. So again, the definition is that it's a belief that with union with or absorption into the deity or the absolute, or the spiritual apprehension of knowledge inaccessible to the intellect, that it may be attained through contemplation or self-surrender. In that interpretation, it's kind of like the ascetics with the early Christian faith. By entering into oneness with the deity and self-surrendering in an austere life, they felt that they would become closer and to greater knowledge, and people called them early mystics. So that's kind of an explanation of that. So mystical, the word mystical is just a form of that word, meaning relating to mysticism. Basically, mysticism is a means or a method. Now, the word esoteric is more of a descriptive term. Esoteric is defined as that which is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. Let me repeat that again for you. So the definition of esoteric is that which is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. So a lot of times when people talk about the Hermetic practices or certain Kabbalah or certain areas, they'll say this is very esoteric. It's not for wide use and wide knowledge. It's kind of specialized, and it's for people who have an interest. Not everyone is interested in esoteric topics. And so lastly, we're going to take a look at the word metaphysical. That's pretty easy. We're just going to break that word down. Meta means outside of, and physical is obviously that which is physical or in the science of physics. Metaphysical is basically anything that pertains to that which is outside of the physical or the science of physics. Kind of broad. Kin to that is supranatural. So supra is very much like meta, being outside of. Supra is above and beyond. So it's very similar in its meaning, and that's why it's so interchangeable. Supranatural means above or beyond that which is of the natural. So you can see why those terms get used back and forth. They practically mean the same thing. It's a nice way to help explain some of the things that are unexplainable scientifically or empirically. What can be scientifically, empirically, or explained through the standard 5 senses is what's considered physical or natural. You can see how metaphysical or supernatural can be swapped out for each other, and in order to better engage in these areas, you need to see that which is outside of or beyond your standard 5 senses, using your ESP. Whoa, wait a minute. What is this nonsense she's talking about, ESP? Yes, ESP is what you think it is, extrasensory perceptions. It's actually just perceiving the world around you through senses that are above, beyond, or outside of the 5 senses that we would routinely use or consider: sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. ESP can include your intuition. They can also include teleskills, like telekinesis, telepathy, teleempathy, which we often say is empathy. We just kind of shorten that down. Empathy, everyone is pretty familiar with. It's an intuition. People have heard those. Those are actually above and beyond. They are outside of your normal senses, so they would be supernatural. And we also have what I call the clairs. All 7 of them: clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairgustance, clairtangency, clairalience, which correlate to the 5 senses. So it's sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, but on a supernatural ability. And we also have the other 2, which are clairsentience and claircognizance. Clairsentience is being able to feel, not like in tangency where you touch. It's more about feeling through emotion, more along the lines of an empath. And then claircognizance is just knowing or clarity of understanding. And we're going to get into all of those in more detail in future episodes, but at least you've heard this terminology, and you can begin to look it up or get a grasp on it or say, oh yeah, I know what she's talking about. That's the difference between physical and then the metaphysical or supernatural. What we'll be focusing on is how to incorporate and utilize the metaphysical or supernatural into our everyday existence to help us towards a more empowered, enriched, enjoyable experience for greater wellness. Let's turn a little bit towards the actual mystical topics. We're going to spend a little more time on the explanation and foundation of this, and I think it's worth it to go over with you once again. What are some of the mystical topics and areas? Well, there's meditation. There's a lot of ways to meditate. There's all different schools and thoughts on meditation. We're going to look at some of those in greater detail. There may be even times where I would offer a guided meditation or have someone offer a guided meditation on a specific topic. We'll dive deeper into meditation and all of the varied areas it has to offer. Also, we're going to look into the art of divination. Lots and lots of different ways to divine, D-I-V-I-N-E, to not to define, but to divine information, for either using it to get information past, present, or future. And we'll be unwrapping some of those in real detail, but some of the areas of divination that we'll look into are tarot, runes, pendulum use, I Ching, astrology, which is another whole mystical area in and of itself. And then there's tea leaves or tessiography, palmistry, reading palms, dowsing, and scrying, which is one that can easily cross over into the magical. And this is literally just scratching the surface of the hundreds of methods of divination. Don't believe me? Just go to Google and put in divination and then open the Wikipedia that's on there for divination. I didn't even try to count how many there were listed. It's mind-boggling. No, we aren't going to break down each and every form. I don't know most of them, so I'm not going to go into most of them. Just the ones that I feel the most comfortable unwrapping with you. Yep, you heard me right, that I feel comfortable with. There's two reasons that I say this. First, some divination can cross into darker or negative methods. And as I said in my inaugural episode, I'm not going to dive deep or go into that which is negative or dark. That's not what this is about. The second reason is, have you ever been given a gift and you don't feel comfortable accepting it? It's like it's not right for you, or you feel it's not something you would use, you might not appreciate, or maybe like owning is not something that you want to have ownership of for whatever reason. You know, did you ever get that feeling? Maybe it's just because you're not at a place where you feel right taking that from the giver. It just doesn't sit right with you for whatever reason. That's what I'm talking about here. There are some areas of metaphysics that I will admittedly state I'm a fledgling at. Like I said, I'm not a guru or an expert in all things metaphysical. I may have dabbled in it. I might understand it. And even though I might feel okay unwrapping the paper on the package and talking a little bit about it, I would not feel comfortable enough to actually open the package and examine that gift with you. So like I said before, I'm not a guru. I'm not the be-all, end-all, and expert on all things. Actually, I consider myself an expert on very few things. But I am highly confident and knowledgeable on a lot of things. Not all things, but a lot of things, and that's where I'm going with you. When we unwrap something, we will take the packaging off. When we dive deeper, we will actually be opening up that gift and examining or looking at and appreciating the gift. There's a difference there. So yes, we will unwrap all things that are energetic and mystical and magical, but we're not necessarily going to go into detail in all of them. I do have limits and boundaries. I know what I'm capable of. I know what I can do and can't do. And so I'm going to try to maintain that through everything that I do with you. Because you're gifting me with your time, I feel that's the least I can do with you. I don't like to be ingenuous or fake about things. If I don't know about something, I'm going to tell you. I really don't know that much about that. Or if I don't have an answer, I'll try to get the best answer from someone that I do trust and feel has the information, and I'll let you know. And that's me. That's just how I roll, and that's the way I am. So I just want to put that out there and up front. Sometimes I might bring in someone, and I'm making little quotation marks here, an expert to interview who can give the answers and the info that you would be requesting. I do plan on using guests from time to time. So I do plan on mixing it up with having maybe some people live here where I'm at, and we'll have discussions. I may do some long distance connection with people who I consider to be experts, and we'll do interviews. Back to topic of meditation and divination. We're also going to look into the whole area of thought and manifestation. When we dive into that area, you're going to hear me speak a lot about Doctors Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton. Both have great shows and series on, guess where? Gaia, and lots of books worth checking out. I'll list some of these in the references so that you can use them if you choose to. Dr. Joe Dispenza's show on Gaia is Rewired, and Dr. Bruce Lipton's is titled Inner Evolution. They'll be referenced more when we get to unbox those areas of thought and manifestation together. Hopefully, most of you have picked up on the gist of my lingo here. Unwrapping is just looking at something, the first step in opening a gift. Unboxing or opening the package is a deeper dive into what's inside the gift. We'll be doing lots and lots of unwrapping, but less unboxing and opening every gift. This is kind of like a kid at Christmas morning. Think of it that way. Get all this pile in front of you of all these awesome gifts. You start ripping all the paper off the gifts. Open some of them that really intrigue you right then and there, and you just can't wait, and you break into some of them, and then some you put aside, and either you forget about them, or you don't open them, you don't want them, or you just re-gift them. That's kind of like what's going to be going on through this whole series. So moving on, I mentioned astrology. I wanted to just clarify that astrology is a science unto itself. And although I use it, I understand it, and I can discuss it to a certain degree, I am in no way an aficionado on this topic. But there are others who are vastly more qualified than I am to totally open this box holding the gift. I will use some of the experts out there and bring them in for you. And people who just eat, sleep, live, and breathe astrology will be here to help us break some of that open. Another area to look at that is a definite crossover between the energetic and the mystical are entities. I consider entities mystical as they're definitely supernatural, but they are a pure energy form. I personally have a lot of experience with entities in all forms, shapes, sizes, and range of scale, or shall we say, niceness or relatability. I'm going to love opening this gift with you in depth. Speaking of entities, a little segue here, we will be also unwrapping the topics of ETs and IDs, extraterrestrials and interdimensionals. Yes, they do both exist. I have firsthand encounter experience with them, both, and we'll be talking about those in some point down the line. I'm not going to go all ancient aliens and talk about UFO, USO stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not my area of depth or knowledge. My experience is encounter-based and has to do with energetic spirit entities, certain types of ETs, and a couple of types of interdimensionals. When we get to that, I will break that open with you and speak about that a little bit more. Another area I consider mystical is ancient civilizations, practices, and tools that were used. Great ancient gifts that are still used today. This can cross over into both the energetic and the magical. See why labels for me are like, I really don't like to use them, because it's so hard to take and fit something into just one pigeonhole. It's just nearly impossible. So as this is episode 2 of the 3-part series of the inauguration of these podcasts, it's kind of like a middle bridge. I thought it would be a great time to talk about a topic and leave you with some practical use info that applies to all 3 areas, the energetic, the mystical, and the magical. This is protection. Yeah, protection. I'm going to get into this topic down the road in an episode in much greater detail. But I really feel that it's important to make it clear now that anyone and everyone who begins seeking or initiating into the metaphysical and supernatural realms must. And you know I've said I use that word extremely few times, but I'm going to say it again. You must. use protection for safety and non-interference from unwanted energies. If you've been around metaphysics or magic with a K for even a short time, you've probably heard people talk about protection, especially using the term concerning energy vampires. There's actually more than just the typical thought or connotation of an energy vampire that we need to worry about. Energy vampires, as most people describe them, are real physical people who draw off of your energy or life force. They drain you emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and or even physically. The Debbie or Danny Downer that you're around, you leave from your time being spent with them, and you feel like you've been through the ringer. Those are physical energy vampires. They are pulling off of you. That's just one type. There are unseen energy vampires, real entities who thrive and live off of energy, if you let them. We'll get into that more when we talk about the entities, but they are real, they exist, and you need to protect yourself against these. You need to apply it to yourself, and it will work against them, and it'll work against all energetic entities, seen and unseen. That's why it's so important and imperative that you develop your own protection protocol to put into place. So I'm going to devote a whole episode to writing and putting together protection protocols and go into real detail. But for right now, I just want to touch on it and to go into a little bit to help you get an idea of what you should be doing to make it work for you. A protection protocol, or the protection you put on, can only be applied to yourself. Some people don't understand this. You can't say, I'm going to put this protection and do a blanket protection. It doesn't work that way because you have to have the explicit, conscious permission from another, like your sister, your spouse, or an older child. When I say child, I'm not talking young baby or your little kid who is primarily under your care and dependence. They don't need your permission because you are their full caretaker. You are responsible for them. But if your child is older, an older teen, and definitely over the age of 18 and without any mental impairment or cognizant ability that's impairing them to make sound judgment, then you have to have their explicit, conscious yes permission to put a protection on them. Because this gets us into the whole topic of free will. Free will is part of universal law. Every entity that exists has a free will. Even when I'm working with entities in clearing them, I have to ask them if they want to go to the light. Every entity, let me say that again, every entity, every energetic being under universal natural law has free will. You can't impose your will on another entity. Now, if you open yourself up unconsciously to an entity, and we'll get into that more later, but if you do that, they get this little loophole that you didn't say no consciously and you opened yourself up, so they'll attach. Free will is really important, and you have to have that from people who are adults in order for you to place it on them. You have to just ask them, point blank, I really want to put a protection on you to help keep you safe. I know you may not believe in what I believe in. It's not going to do any harm for you. You don't even have to believe it. But I would like to do this, and do you give me permission to place a protection on you? It's like a blessing, more or less, you could explain to them. I just want to give you a blessing. And if they say yes, great. If they say no, you cannot do it. There's some steps to it to make it a real protocol. So the first thing you want to do is, after you get the consent and you have the approval of someone and their permission to do it, if it's other than just yourself, you want to start off with terminology that includes across all time and space, with the universe as my witness, stating your full name, I, Jane Mary Doe, and then you write out whatever it is that you want to state or include in your protocol, and you can put whatever you choose to name it. Okay, so let's say you want to do like a sleep protection protocol, and you want to be able to put this on at night. So you start with, across all time and space, with the universe as my witness, I, John Martin Doe, proclaim this to be my sleep protection protocol. And from here forward, when I invoke or put in place this sleep protection protocol, the following stipulations apply in totality. And you read it out loud. You've had it written down. You state exactly what you want, and you have to be specific in your protocol. Like, what energy is allowed in? Is that light, unconditional love, source, trusted spirit guides, or your spirit team, ascended masters? Whatever you choose to allow in, you can say these are allowed in. Also, you have to put what is not allowed. That would be generally any and all beings not aligned with, you can use whatever terminology. I like to use pure truth, light, and unconditional love of source. I mean, I think that's pretty broad and covers just about anything I don't want coming in. But you can put it however you want it, but you need to be specific. State that they are not welcome, they're not wanted, they are, most importantly, they do not have your permission to interact or approach you or those under your protection of this sleep protection protocol, or whatever the name of your protocol is, in any shape, way, or form. Only those being invited specifically have your permission. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, this lady's crazy. And this is a freaking contract or legal document. Yep, on the last part. Not the first. I'm not crazy. I am like you. When I first heard this stuff, I thought, this is crazy. I learned otherwise. Again, because of universal law, and everything that is energy or energetic is aware of, no matter what their realm, reality, dimension, whatever is, they have to adhere and observe the universal law of free will. And what you're doing is you are laying out a contract with the universe and putting it out there that says, this is what I am declaring. This is my will, and you all have to abide by it. And this is great at night when you're going to sleep, because they love to try to interfere with you when you're in that other state where your subconscious is at free play and you're not as aware and you're more vulnerable. So it's a great thing to have in place. And when you have this all put together and you have it all ready to go, it's very powerful, and you need to take it seriously and take adequate time to write it out, and you have to read it aloud. So we've named our protocol. We've laid out our necessary requirements. We had in the beginning, cross all time and space, with the universe as my witness, with my name. And then you have the body of your contract and who it applies to by name or whatever, the people specifically, and who can interact and who cannot interact. So you've done your whole body. Just a little note here. So let's say you have 2 boys. You're a mom with 2 boys. You can't say my son, because if you say your son, no. If you have 1 son, that's fine. But if you have 2 sons, you have to specifically name them as David or Richard or whatever his name is. So you have to say my son, whoever, my daughter, whoever, my grandchild, whoever, just to clarify that. If you mean David and you have David and Richard and you want David and David agreed to the protection, but Richard didn't, or Richard doesn't want any part of it, and you say my son, then it isn't valid. It's like a loophole in the contract. I know that sounds kind of legally, but you have to just think of it in terms of be specific. It really does work, and it makes a big difference. I do say that when I add my son, I say my son. I don't leave it out there and just say whoever. Since I only have 1 grandchild, I can say my grandchild, because I only have 1 at this time. So moving on from there, you have to finalize your entire protocol with a seal. and close it. If you think about prayers or letters or anything, you have your introduction, you have your beginning, you have your body, you have your close. It's no different. The only caveat is when you close or seal your protocol, it has to be in triplicate. So you can say amen, like you would at the end of a prayer. It doesn't matter what way you say amen. Anun, omein, on, amen, amen. If you want to use that form, it means technically, so be it. So if you say so be it, that's fine too. Yeah, you can use so be it. You can use an amen or any form of that. Those are really strong, and those are closing and sealing. So be it, so be it, so be it. Let me back up here. No offense to people who like to use the terms blessed be. Blessed be is great as a salutation, like at the end, to say blessings on you, or it's a benevolent closing. That's fine, but it doesn't have the power and finality and sealing of an amen or so be it. You really want to try to use so be it or a form of amen. And then at the very end, and I got this from Mitch Horowitz, he adds in at the end of whatever he puts forth to the universe, see to it. I say specifically, with gratitude, see to it. I'm big in pleases and thank yous. I'm not the type of person that dictates or commands to people, go do this, Even when I had people working under me and I was in a position of leadership, it would be, could you please do this? Or would you please go get me that? Or could you please look into this? And thank you for the work you did. So that's just me. I'm not the type that would throw papers on a desk and say, see, this gets done. And for me, that's kind of like what that see to it feels like to me. You can say it if it doesn't rub you the wrong way, but for me, it just seemed a little too brusque or dictatorial. So I just add with gratitude, see to it, or sometimes with gratitude, please see to it. I think that's a little bit of my faith background from all of my many years growing up. As I said, I was Catholic with the prayers, the petitional prayers. But you definitely have to have a closing and you have to seal it. What I do is I did my sleep protection protocol. I have a couple different ones. I have one for daytime. I have one for if I'm going out into a special situation. I have one for if we're going to be watching especially horror-based or fear or dark energy-based programs, movies, playing violent or dark-based or horror video games, things along that line. I will put a protection on to prevent any excess of any energy flow that I don't want. I've made it very simple. I said it once, I named it. And then by naming it, I put it out there and I say to the universe, anytime I call on, invoke, or put in place my protocol named, and I named it, Sleep Protection Protocol, it is fully invoked and in place in its totality. I don't have to go through every night and say the whole long protocol. I just basically say, I'm now invoking my sleep protection protocol for, and I name the people, blah, 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 blah. I rattle them off real quick. I say, so be it, so be it, so be it. With gratitude, see to it. And that's it. And I'm done in a matter of seconds. Probably there's people thinking, yeah, right, this is crazy. Let me explain to you. I thought it was a bunch of kafooey and stupid years ago, too. I knew about it. I really didn't do much with it. I didn't care about it. But when I started learning under my master teacher, Raim, for crystal dreaming, which hopefully we will have a chance to get really deep into and have him as a guest, he started talking about it was required that you put protections on, not just yourself, but you also call forth a protection for those you will be facilitating as they're in their expanded state of consciousness. Also that you put a protection on the area, your healing space that you're going to be working in. I'm sure for those of you who do energy work or healing work, this is not a strange concept to put protections on. But I kind of rankled at it and fought against it for a while. Then he started telling us about his encounters and why it was so important. I was like, okay, if you say so. Then I experienced crystal dreaming as a facilitator and as someone who actually went on a crystal dreaming journey. wow, did I finally understand the need for protections. It was amazing. So I was like a firm believer in protection protocols after that point. They work. They're important. You can make one up for when you do spell work. People who do spell work, it's really important that you place a protection on yourself when you're doing your spell work before you do it. So we're just touching a little bit here on how to do one type of protocol, and I gave you a little bit of in a nutshell, a flow of how it can work. Like I said, you don't have to keep repeating the whole lengthy thing every time, but you can also amend it. That's the beauty of this. Just like legal documents have addendums or changes to them, you can alter it as you see down the road and you get more adept at it. I can tell from experience when I have fallen asleep and forgotten to put on a protection before I go to sleep at night. Because my daughter called me up and was like, she knows all about this stuff, and she asked me to include her in her protection. And I said, do it yourself. You can do this. And she goes, Mom, for some reason, I think you just have a better ear with the universe and it just works better for you. I was like, okay, whatever. So I include her in mine. There have been a couple nights, not recently, but quite a while back when I was kind of new at all of this. She would say, Mom, I have to ask you, did you forget to put on that protection protocol last night? Because I had some really weird dreams and some really nasty things happened in my dream. And that was really out of the norm. And I was just wondering. And I would think back and I would say, oh yeah, I fell asleep in the chair last night and went right up to bed and got into bed. And I was half asleep when I did it. Yeah, I did. I forgot to put on that protection protocol last night. So that was a reinforcer and validation for me that this works. So now I put an addendum to my sleep protocol. I officially started off and said this is an addendum and is now included as part fully and in total with my sleep protocol, that anytime I doze off, if for any reason my consciousness is chemically altered, no, I don't do drugs, but let's say I have surgery, or I have to take some sort of a medication that would make me less than aware. I put in chemically altered consciousness. Anytime I doze off or anytime that I fall asleep in a state that I am not fully aware in my consciousness, that this sleep protection protocol will automatically be invoked and put in place for me. And I ended it with my seal and closing it. And now I do put it on actively every night, but I don't worry if I fall asleep. And I forget, because there have been times I have dozed off in a chair, getting warm under a blanket at night, and you doze off. You've all been there. All of a sudden I have this really strange experience. That's because I dozed off without a protection protocol. Doesn't happen anymore. I know this is a lot on this topic, but I just can't stress how important it is. People, when you talk about protection, they also say, what about crystals or herbs or gree-gree or juju bags or whatever you want to call them? What about a talisman or an amulet? They're all great. They all can help on different levels and vibrations. They can enhance and reinforce protocols you put forth. Crystals are first and foremost one of my things. I use herbs. I consider myself an herbalist and working with herbalism. I understand different little talismans and amulets. You can use any of those. If you are interested in crystals, let me give you just a couple types and names out there that you might want to use for protection. Again, we'll get into that when we talk about protection more in detail, or when I do a deeper dive on different types of crystals. That will also be included there. Anything that is in the black realm of crystals, black tourmaline, black onyx, black obsidian, those are really good for protection. You can use shungite. Shungite is excellent for protection against electromagnetic energies. Crystals are really beneficial to carry with you. I carry crystals in my pocket for protection. I carry a variety of them, small ones. I carry green tourmaline, which is a good stone for protection against taking on other people's emotions and feelings. So I carry green tourmaline with me whenever I'm out in public. I carry hematite, which is another good one. So I carry those with me. Sometimes I've been known to wear a black tourmaline necklace. Any of those stones that are connected with black in color or are noted for their protection properties. If you look up stones with metaphysical properties for protection, they're going to list them. Smoky quartz is a good one. It's not one of my go-to stones. I prefer something that is deeper, more solid, genuinely black. So my tops are obsidian, onyx, and tourmaline. I think that they have some of the best protection qualities. I personally recommend this to establishments and businesses that I have done a cleansing on their environment for them. You need to get some statuary or obelisk or whatever in black onyx and place it in your business because it's a great, great protection stone. Yeah, enough on crystals for now. We'll be diving a little deeper into those in greater detail down the road. But by far and large, the best I've found is doing a verbal, stated to the universe, contractual protection of whatever for whatever reason. Maybe you want to make one for when you are going out into public. You know, when I go out into public, energies that are negative cannot approach or come towards me or sap from my energy. You could say whatever you want. There's no specific way you have to say it. It's just important that you do say it. So if you have comments or questions about protections, by all means, go ahead and leave them there. And like I said, I will have down the road an episode where we will get into this and break it open and really look at languages and some examples and help walk through it a little bit. But I've had great success with people who have asked me, help me walk through one. And I've helped them develop it. I didn't tell them what to write. Again, it's got to be you. But I helped them, I guided them, and they're like, wow, what a difference that protocol has made for me. So I guess the only other thought I had on that is take your time, write it out thoughtfully, read it out loud, name it your own, make sure you outline it, and then once you need to, just invoke it by name. Very simple. One more little expounding on a topic before we, wrap this up for this episode. I touched on thought and manifestation. That's a huge topic, and people do podcasts just on that topic alone. Their whole niche or approach is that whole area, and that's all they focus on. It's pretty big. Thought and manifestation is about taking that which is subconscious, combining it with that which is conscious, putting it forth to the universe for manifestation into material reality. Huh? Yeah, I know. You're sitting there, what? What it is what you think when you're aware of it, what is going on in your brain subconsciously in symbols and imagery that you're not consciously thinking about, working those together, figuring out how to make it work for you, putting it out with emotion, which is your heart, putting it out to the universe for the universe to see it, hear it, accept it, know it, and then manifest it. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at processes, whatever people like to say, however you want to pronounce that. We're going to look at whether the experts out there are telling us works for them and how we can get better at this. I've had some success with it, and I'm working on others. I'm not so adept that I can think one thing and in a day it manifests. I wish that were true because, I'd be in some huge, beautiful mansion home or in the mountains somewhere in a beautiful log cabin or something. And I'd have more money than I know what to do with and be able to give away to people. I'm not that adept at it. But I am getting better, and it's a work in progress. And I do see things that I put out there do manifest to me, which, is good because when you start on a smaller scale and it works and it feeds back to you and it validates it, then you start trying your hand with confidence at bigger things. So we're going to look at more on that. The other part of it is, I said when you put it with emotion, that's an important piece of the formula or the equation. People often forget about that. That's that heart-mind connection. And we'll break it down more, but you have your brain and you have your mini brain, and your mini brain's in your heart. That is actually the one that controls everything. It's not the big gray matter, in our skulls. That's not the one that controls as much as we think it does. It's really important to foster and build and work on that heart and mind connection. It's important to also know that we're manifesting things in our lives so much more than we realize. And a lot of it is in a very negative way. Well, you're thinking, why would I want to manifest anything that's negative? We don't do it intentionally. When we look at these in more detail, we'll see that what we think, that chatter in our head, that negative talk, things that just inherently come up from our past or what we've allowed to go on as a loop in our head, the images we play over subconsciously without even being aware of it, can manifest in disease and illness in our lives, obstacles in our career or life choices, disharmony in our relationships, dependence on different substances, I guess, or things in your life you can't live without. There's a lot of ways that this can manifest negatively and we aren't even aware of it. And I didn't realize that came pretty easy to me, manifesting the negative, because I'd been doing it for so long, so easily, didn't even realize it. The universe doesn't understand not, like I will not be overweight. I will not drink anymore. I will not speak harshly to someone. It doesn't understand that. All it hears is speak harshly, be overweight. Like I said, we will have people helping, and I will reference great experts on this to help us get through some of those ideas of thought and manifestation. Huge, wonderful impact on your life when you can get it to work for you. So on that note, that seems like this might be a good place to begin to wrap things up, at least for this episode. Last time we talked about the energetic, we touched on it and what it is and some of the topics we'll cover. This time we looked at mystical and broke down what mystical means, at least to me, and where my mind's coming from, and some of the topics that we'll explore and unwrap through the mystical. So next time we're going to look at the magical, and again with a K. There's that big difference. Magic, it's not the Harry Potter magic. And it's not the magic that you see, smoke and mirrors. This is with the K that talks about energetical happenings. I don't label it as witch or witchcraft, even though those could be applied to that type of topic. I don't prefer to use them. I think there's too many negative connotations, and people can judge too easily or jump to an idea or a thought too quickly when they hear those terms. Magical is so much more and larger than that one label. So that's why I really don't want to call it witchery, witchcraft, witch, whatever. I have referred to myself as a witch. I've also called myself a wise woman, a light worker, an energy worker, and other labels. I don't like labels, but sometimes it's easier to use them when you're speaking with someone, trying to get a concept or a thought or an idea across to someone that they might understand. So depending on who I speak to, I might use a different label. But the magical is just that. It's using energy in a magical way. And it's not with the C, like wave a wand and whew, there you go. Magic appears and you can unlock a door or turn on a light. That's not what we're talking about. We'll be breaking that down next time, going over, again, what I consider magical to be and some of the topics that we'll be unwrapping in that category. So if there is a topic you'd like to know more about, if you have questions, or if you just want to leave some kind comments or constructive critiques, please do so. put them on the podcast page at giftsoftheages.com/podcast and leave them there for me, and I'll do my very best to get back to you as soon as possible with a reply or some sort of acknowledgement. Also, Gifts of the Ages has a store site. It's fledgling. I've just decided to start launching all of this together, so it's a work in progress. But if there's things you'd like to see on that page, that website to be included for sale, some ideas, go ahead and put that there. If you know of some really great references, sure, jot them down for me. If I'm not familiar with them, I'll look into them. Also, as I'm expanding this whole website, I hope to have different types of resource pages, like on crystals or herbs or aromas or rites or whatever, and have a variety of resource pages that people can also go to for the things that I talk about and find them there. So if you have suggestions, go ahead and leave those for me. I will have also a reference page that will list what I've referenced in my podcast on one page, so that you don't have to go to the podcast page and try to flip through all the different episodes to find a reference. So I'm working on that as well. Hey everybody, I really appreciate you all, and thanks for gifting me with your time. I want you to stay safe, keep asking those questions and searching for your answers. And as always, from me to you, peace and blessings.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gifts of the Ages. If you liked what you heard, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, be sure to check out the website, giftsoftheages.com. You can comment about the show along with topics or questions you want discussed. Thanks again for listening, and be sure to tune in next time as we unwrap more Gifts of the Ages.